Hey guys, welcome back to the Hybrid Athlete channel. So, today is a bit of a reflection day. I competed at the weekend, first powerlifting competition in a long time. So let's start with the positives. The positives are that I got close to my overall total I wanted. I didn't injure myself, considering I have a 50 miler next weekend. The only thing I've got coming off the back of this is a little bit of tightness in my right knee and hip, and just a bit of tightness in my lower back as well. It's been a while since I've deadlifted and squatted in the same day. So yeah, I'm feeling good, feeling healthy. I was really tired. Yeah, let's work through this in reverse order. That makes sense. So in terms of the result, I got first place in my class. It's a bit of a default thing though, with those kind of smaller local shows. That's not what I was there for. It's a nice little surprise, considering strength hasn't been a major focus of this block. So yeah, to get any kind of trophy medal was nice. So yeah, overall I was really happy with the day. I'd rate my performance on the day as a kind of 7.5 out of 10. The squats went better than expected. It's really weird being on a platform under the command of somebody else when you're lifting. So it's very surreal to be told, like, to unrack and squat in someone else's time. So that's one thing. Obviously, training on my own a lot of the time was a bit of a shock. So opened with a 135 squat, just thought I was going to go in safe. I'd not cut this much weight before, in a long time. So I was just worried about the refueling. I hadn't slept very well because there was a guy in the room in the hotel room next to me who was snoring all night. So that wasn't really helpful, especially when you're trying to get off that last little bit of water as well. So I'll talk about the water cut at the end of this. I'll finish where I started, as it were. So yeah, squat, jumped on. Wasn't too sure how I was going to feel in front of the crowd with the queuing, everything else as well. Jumped on for 135 kilos, not exactly earth shattering. But yeah, it went up fairly comfortably. A couple of little things that that I noticed on the first squat was that I was going off his command. So as soon as I unracked and he said squat, I just kind of went on the B of bang rather than saying, okay, now it's time to squat. Taking my time, setting myself. So my back tightness was terrible, but luckily it was with a weight that I could kind of muscle it up, regardless of how tired or how poor my technique was. I knew unless something drastic had happened, I was going to be fine. So that went well. And 145, similar sort of thing as well. Still went on the B of bang when he said squat. So that was something I was trying to drill into myself, that it's it's not a start pistol. It's just now you're free to squat. So I did 145 and that felt okay. I'm still a little bit hesitant through the mid part of my squat because of my back, because that's really where, if I'm going to get any issues with it, that's where it flares up. So I was kind of a little bit hesitant. But it went and it moved okay. So then I went, right, you know what? I'll go for 152 if I feel anything. It was off a proper lifting platform, so it had the kind of the safety ropes, the safety bands there, and there was 3 spotters. So I thought I'll just commit to this one. I won't hesitate with the rep, and that went fine. There was a little bit of grind at midpoint, but again, that point of hesitation for me where I kind of tense a little bit, I sort of tend to slow that rep down just to make sure everything's nice and tight, and then just use that kind of hip drive and that leg drive to get through it. So that went well. Bench, after I got through that, I think maybe I relaxed a little bit. The adrenaline of having quite a stressful morning, weigh-ins took a little bit of time, and I was really hungry. I was quite depleted. I was trying to get back to the hotel where I was staying to have breakfast because it was only 5 minutes, so it was only around the corner, so that worked out quite well. Needed to refuel after making weight, and then there wasn't much time then, so I felt a little bit frantic, but I think because of that my adrenaline up, so the squat went well. Bench opened at 117.5. I'll talk through this really quickly. Messed up the first rep completely. Didn't have my feet set. Had no tension in the back. The length of the pause threw me off. I mean, they do pause bench in powerlifting competitions, obviously, but this was a long ass pause. So I lost all my tension. So and I had poor tension to start with. So reset that. Did that again. Got 117.5 up. That went up really easily. Would have liked to have gone 117.5, 122.5, 127.5, but just thought I'll hit the mid ground, went for 125, almost got the lift, foot went, back went, blah, 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 didn't get it, red lighted. done, okay? But no, I had 125 in me, if with a little bit more experience. I was a bit disappointed with that. That's why my ranking isn't a 10 out of 10. A little bit disappointed because bench is usually my strongest lift. I was really hoping to get around, like I said, anything over like 127.5, 130 kilo mark. And then deadlift, I actually felt surprisingly good after the squat. Just the knee was a little bit tender, as it can get sometimes, but not too bad. So opened with 100, did the warm-ups for the deadlifts. They all felt great. I warmed up nice and early just to stop, and kept just doing singles with like quite a light weight for a good period of time whilst the other flights were lifting. Really important for me to keep my back moving or it just tightens up really quickly. Same with my glutes, my hamstrings. So I just kept pulling every, a double, triple, every sort of 10-15 minutes at quite a light weight, just whilst everyone else was kind of gathered around watching the rest of the flights for the powerlifting going on. And then, so worked up to 160 as a warm-up, opened at 175. 175 moved really well, little too well, I was a bit surprised. 185 went, and that went okay, I felt all right, and I just thought, at that point the plan was to just kind of leave it there and just maybe do a token 190, but I felt good, and I thought, you know what, the crowd was there at that point, people were starting to get a bit more involved, a bit more vocal, so I thought, I'll just whack 200 on there and I'll give that a go, because that's a really good benchmark for where I'd want to be getting towards if I want to start competing at sort of British level. Is getting my, my squat needs to improve significantly, and I'm aware of that. My bench is passable at the moment, but will be better. I've got no doubts about that. But my deadlift is one where I think I can make up ground pretty quickly, so I thought I'll just see how it goes. And and 200 went up, and I was quite happy with that. A little bit of an aggressive roar at the end of it. So I kind of got into the groove at that point mentally, and then felt good. So overall, the day was, pretty much a success. Went the way I wanted it to go. Came out of it with no injuries, apart from, like I say, my knee and my hip on my right hand side are a little bit tight today. Nothing, a bit of stretching, and that won't deal with. The water cut went well, so I think I started around about 87.5, 88, and I ended up weighing in at 82.6. So it was like 100 grams over. So I just had to go for a quick walk around the block and make the 82.5 fine. It didn't go to plan in the sense that normally, then the last night when I sleep well, that I usually drop, like a pound to 2 pounds overnight fairly comfortably. And just because of the lack of sleep and everything else, I think my body was a bit stressed and holding on to water. So that wasn't quite fun. So I had to get up quite early in the morning and go for a little stroll. The other thing as well was the hotel, the little guest house where I stayed was really nice, but I'd asked for a room with a bath so I could do some hot water baths to get that last bit off if needed, and didn't get a room with a bath. I'd requested one, didn't get one. So I think if I was going to compete, if I was taking my competition seriously, like I said, I was taking it seriously because you kind of have to or you get hurt, but I wasn't treating this as, life or death, need to qualify for the British or get this total. It was just experiential, hit the lifts that I think I can hit great. It was, like I say, it was a bit of an unknown because of the fact that I hadn't cut this much weight and wondered how it affected my strength, and it actually didn't too much. I think my bench strength was affected because of technical issues and also just, I think, maybe a lack of sleep and stuff. So overall, I was pretty happy with how my, making weight went. I think maybe with the traveling that I had to do and the day I'd had before, I think maybe I pulled back on my water loading a little too soon. So I think I got to the point where I just kind of stopped sweating. So it kind of became a bit futile at that point. So I'd have probably pushed my water load a little bit higher and a little bit longer. And then pulled back a little bit later as well. But apart from that, I was pretty happy with it. It wasn't massively traumatic to make. Last couple of days, food and carbs were pretty low, but it wasn't horrific. When you're trying to make weight and you're trying to lose that much weight, you have to expect to be a little bit hungry, especially when you're swapping to a lower residue diet as well. So you're cutting carbohydrates, you're cutting fiber, and I think that if I can build a little bit more muscle at this weight and just keep my body fat a little bit lower, so body recomp a little bit over the next few months, which is kind of the goal now. I don't want to get much smaller than this for my running. I think like I could do to get my running faster, but I do think that also I can bring my body, like I'm pretty lean right now, but I can bring my body fat down just like a tiny bit and maintain that. But at the moment, my priority is to keep my weight around that 87 to 89 kilo barrier, push my food up. Once it gets there, just hold it there, try and build some muscle, try and get some strength back. And then obviously, I know that I can still make that 82.5 category. I'm not going to say comfortably, but what I'm going to say is without it being to the point at which I couldn't function. You see some people after making weight and they felt drained. I was fine. I was walking around. I was laughing. I was joking. My refuel went really well. I went for the classics kind of as soon as I'd weighed in. I had some sports drink, which was a mixture of glucose and fructose. You get greater uptake of those things because fructose and glucose are uptaken in the gut through different transporters, so it allows you to get more carbs in quickly. So I think I smashed in about 120 to 150 grams of carbs in the first 60 to 90 minutes, and that sat quite well in my stomach. So did that as soon as I'd weighed in. Only had about an hour and a half between weighing in and lifting, and I was in the first flight as well. So obviously it didn't push food in too much, and actually did me a favour because the temptation is to wolf a load of food down. So I had the drink, went back to the guest house, had some breakfast there, and just had some like sugary cereal, some faster digesting sort of cereals, like the sugary stuff, like your Frosties, Crunchy Nut. Mix and match those. Again, didn't overeat. Had some orange juice, high in electrolytes. Again, fructose, different transporter. So got that in my system. And then obviously the milk and with the cereal, and had a little bit of skim milk with that as well. Great for hydration. And yeah. Then I just pulled it back in at that point, just chilled out, didn't want to overdo it, knew I'd have enough glycogen in my system to get at least my squats out the way, and it went well. And then after obviously I got the squats, I had a bit more time then before the bench, so got myself a sandwich, a bit more filling foods, and then felt fine for the rest of the day. Energy was good. I think I had a couple of dips in energy, but that's not really surprising considering I think I had about 4 hours sleep the night before, so I didn't get to bed till about 10:30, 11, and I think I was up at 2 o'clock. Just woke up, and then the guy next door started snoring. Honestly, it was just like something I've never experienced in my life. And yeah, you could hear his wife like shouting at him, waking him up and stuff. So that wasn't exactly ideal, but there's not much you can do about that. So lessons moving forwards. One would be to just get a bit more familiar with like training with commands for powerlifting again. So just reflecting upon those things, and on the last rep of my squat, for example, when he said squat, I didn't just squat straight away. I just waited, composed my breath, braced everything nice and tight, which I hadn't done as well for the first couple of reps because I had to, because it was a bit heavier than I was intending on lifting. I think in terms of just silly logistical things, making sure that you're guaranteed you've got a bath. Obviously this is, for a lot of lifters financially dependent, going up even a couple of days earlier to stay in a hotel or getting an Airbnb where you've got a bath, you've got your own kitchen, that it's a bit easier with food manipulation, water manipulation, and just keeping those stress levels a little bit lower. And yeah, I think that's about it really. Oh, and then just in terms of bench press, just working on those longer pauses on the bench. Deadlift was fine, no issues with that whatsoever. No issues with the instructions, no issues with the lifts. Technically felt good. Felt like I had a bit more in the tank. And then there was a deadlift only competition that day that I didn't enter. I just did the full power. I think if I entered the bench only, I might have come second for my weight class. I think I could have come first if I hadn't ballsed up, or maybe if I had an extra lift. I think I get an extra lift if you enter an extra class. And the deadlift, I would have come third, and there was a few people in that class, but I would have come third by like 3 kilos, and I think I could have possibly squeezed to 205 or 210, given the opportunity, but I'm glad I didn't, because that's where risk of injury would have really kicked in for me. So moving forwards next week is my 50 miler. So this week, the priority is just recovery and refueling. After I got back last night, my appetite was still quite low, so I had a little bit of like junkier foods, had a little bit of pizza, but just like a mini one literally, and some ice cream. Appetite was still quite low. Urine colour was still quite dark, so I don't think I've fully hydrated. So today the priorities are like food, fluid, electrolytes, getting some protein back in to help that body recover, and again, not use it as an excuse to just go out and eat a load of crap. Getting my fruits, my vegetables in, my micronutrition that's been missing the last few days as well, because obviously with reducing carbohydrates and fruits and things in the diet and high fiber foods, I want to get that back in check, really boost that recovery. Couple of hot water baths to stimulate that blood flow, to activate those heat shock proteins to support that recovery over the next few days. So I'll be hitting a few hot water baths, and then just lots of just movement, general movement. I'm a big fan of and encourage people to become more mobile, learn to move their bodies through a full range of motion with good control. I think that can only do athletes good. But I'm not going to spend hours and hours stretching, but I'll go through a few mobility drills, just keep the body moving, keep stretching through sort of my hips, my glutes, my knees. And yeah, that's it really. I was gonna try and get in a run maybe tomorrow or Wednesday, but just a very gentle, maybe 5k. just to get that turnover in the legs again, but I'll just see how I'm feeling. Ideally, I'd have liked to have got a longer run in yesterday evening after the competition, but getting back from where it was a lovely little town just over the river from Hull, over the River Humber. Getting back was a nightmare. Public transport was a nightmare. Couldn't get a taxi anywhere. There's no Ubers there. So yeah, I was trying to get a train plan was to get a train at like 5 or 6, get back and then go for a light warm down run yesterday evening. Ended up not getting back till 9 o'clock last night. It's quite a funny story. So I'm in this town, can't get an Uber, can't find a taxi firm, find some random pub, ask the guy there and says like, look, do you know anyone when there's like a taxi firm? He gives me this number and it's just like some random guy who's the taxi service in that town. So he picks me up and he's like, oh, I said I was going to pick you up in like 20 minutes, but I've got to go and do this other job. So I'm sort of sat in this car and he picks some other random up on the way and he sort of knows him really well. So it was quite quaint and quite funny, but like no other taxi experience I've got. So yeah, eventually didn't end up getting my train back till just after 7 o'clock. And then I had to make a couple of changes, so I didn't get back home till about 8:30 into Leeds. And then, by the time I got some food and got home, it wasn't feasible for me to do that run yesterday. I'm kind of glad I didn't now, but it would have been probably nice to stretch the legs a little bit. And just refuel and take some carbs on. But that didn't happen, so I'm just going to play it by ear over the next few days. The training for the run's done now anyway. It's just nice to just have a bit of turnover and get a bit of confidence from going out and running a decent pace for 5K. So a lot of that will depend on how I feel. The latest I will do that run would be Wednesday morning, because Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, travelling back to Chester on Thursday, doing a little bit of a course recce on part of the course where I'm not too sure about. So I ran the first bit of the course, know what that's like, got a good mental preparation for the challenges of that and how I'm going to run it. The last bit of the course I've ran before many moons ago, and I know that bit of the course. So the last 20k is fine. First 25k is fine. So that's half the race. Bit of a sketchy 8k after that first 25k if you've seen one of my other vlogs. But then there's an unknown bit. So I'm going to go and do a bit of a course recce on that on Thursday afternoon. Just have a little bit of a walk, not run it, but just walk up and down a certain bit of the trail just to see what the terrain's like and see how it's held up under the rainy conditions we've had here. And then Thursday we'll do most of my fueling on the Thursday, which I tend to do for my longer running events, just so it's all digested. I've got plenty of time to kind of get that in and out my system. And then on the Friday night will be an early night, and then obviously if I fuel up loads on the Thursday, waking up on the Saturday morning means I'm not, the race starts at 6 a.m, means I'm not having to smash a load of food in me on the morning or do it on a Friday night and it sits in your stomach. It's really bizarre. Even yesterday I didn't really get that nervous. It was really weird. I thought I'd be more nervous than it was, but I don't really get nervous anymore. I've noticed that with my longer runs in the last few events I've done, I just don't seem to have it. I think that kind of, I get excited, maybe nerves and excitement are a very similar kind of psychological experience, or physiological experience. How we interpret it psychologically might be different. So yeah, I'm not that nervous about it. I know I've got the tools to do the job. I know I'll get through it. It's just how much in one piece, how in one piece I get through it. Does that make sense? Yeah, if I get through it in one piece, there we go. If I get through it in one piece, that will be determined is the key thing for me. Finally, just in the last part of this, so I've been invited to do the British Championships in my weight class, which is great. That is the middle of May. Now, unfortunately, that is just before my 100-mile attempt. But fortunately, it's 2 weeks before. So now I've got a decision to make. The plan was to do the powerlifting competition now, just to get a good baseline of where I am, get some experience, focus on my running until June or July, and the second half of the year try and chase that British record bench total for my weight class. However, now I know that's going to be in the first part of the year. I'm not sure which way around to do it now, so I need to go and just take a step away, take my excitement of competing off the table for a second and just think about this rationally, about what my goals are this year, and am I capable of doing those two things in such close proximity. Yes, I'm capable of competing at both, but am I going to be happy to go to a British Championships and not do as well as I could do? Or am I happy that I'm willing to take the risk that might take something out of me and I might injure myself for my 100-miler? I think I know what I'm going to do, but I'll talk about that next time, maybe. All right, guys. Anyway, have a great rest of your day. Peace.